So I'll start with a very brief story. It's a little bit embarrassing. So about 2 months ago, I called my parents at home. My mom picked up the phone. The first thing she says is, "Jason, your father and I just Googled you. We found all these videos." And I'm like, first I stop. I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. I had a bachelor party about 4 months ago prior to this. And I'm thinking, just tell her it's a cigarette. Tell her something other than what she thinks she's saying. So before I get and really embarrass myself, she says, What's Appian World and what's this thing called VA for Vets? It was 3 years old. I had presented up here on stage a couple years ago. And so my mom, no matter how long I've been doing BPM, I've been doing it about 10 years, explaining to her what I do for a living is literally the most impossible thing I do. If anybody here has tried to explain to their family what BPM is or what you do, I started talking to her and I'm explaining to her, and it is process this and inputs, outputs, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty much a black hole. But I kind of, after that brick wall for a while, I said, well, that was a program where we helped veterans reintegrate into, after they came in from the military. And we built a solution to help them find jobs. Okay, light bulb, got it, okay. And it got me thinking. I did a version of this presentation about, 6 months ago for the federal users group, where it was really a focus on a lot of the technology, and you'll see some of those slides here. But it got me thinking, okay, so we're going to talk today about the Affordable Care Act, and really what we did was we delivered a solution that helped people. And so as we go through this, I think what you're going to see, I'm going to spin this a little bit as the technology that supported how we served our customer in that mission. Let me go forward. Okay, so just a brief introduction. So SERCO, most of you guys have never heard of us. You can see up here from these things. Just to give you an example of the type of stuff we do. If you drove on the highway in Virginia to get here, we don't build the roads, but we do monitor the traffic cameras. We do change the highway signs, and those white safety vehicles on the side of the road, those guys are us. If you are in Ontario, Canada, we license all of the drivers in Ontario, Canada. If you've ever filed for a patent in the United States, in the last 10 years, that patent went through our office in Harrisonburg, Virginia. If you applied for a visa to come to the United States in the last 10 years or so, your visa came through a SERCO facility where we processed your visa and got that out to you. In the UK, this is one of those I love to say, we used to, and actually up until last year, we actually ran the Greenwich Mean Time clock, so we controlled time, which is the way I like to say it. That's real power. Let me advance here. So real quick, and I hate to use the clip art here, but again, in the Fed, and for all of you, reduced budget, dispersed workforce, so we've been talking, hearing a lot about call centers and all these places that are all over the environment, all over the country, and even in the world. And as you can imagine, in the political scene here, the uncertain environment. What do they want from us? Okay, with all of those things that we say, okay, what do they want? They want immediate ROI. So turn it on, and then we start saving money. We start reducing headcount. They want solutions that are easy to train and operate. So it used to be in the past when you're doing federal projects, is okay, well, you're going to have the people that deploy stuff. You're going to have a project manager. You're going to have all these trainers. You're going to have all these support people to do this project. Not anymore. We've got to be a lot leaner in how we bid and deliver things. And ultimately, the old method of the past, and all you guys really understand this, used to be vendor goes in, deploys solution, only buddy who can fix the solution is the vendor. And that went on forever. And we got to get away from that. So let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. So there's always this disclaimer, we didn't build the healthcare.gov website. It's the first thing I like to say. That wasn't us. We won a contract in 2013 to do all of the back-end processing for the Affordable Care Act. So our workforce is predominantly what they call Service Contract Act. Service Contract Act basically means that the Department of Labor sets wages for labor categories in a given jurisdiction, okay? So we use clerk 2s and clerk 3s. $10 an hour, $12 an hour, somewhere in that ballpark is the work that people that are performing this work. What's our scope? We take in all the paper. So if anybody goes to the Affordable Care Act, any of the healthcare.gov websites, seen any of the paper, it'll say London, Kentucky. So, as a British contractor, the joke used to be that, SERCO processes Obamacare applications in London, right? London, Kentucky. It's clearly not as glamorous. We do all of the exemptions. That's a paper process. People send exemptions to us. We process those. And we do all the verification work. So you say that you make X amount of dollars, government has a different answer, you're required to send us documents for us to look at. As you can imagine in this third bullet here, there's no pattern for how applications or data was going to come into our call centers and into our contact centers. The program didn't exist. So a lot of this was very unknown. And when we talk about the scale, and you'll see some numbers on a subsequent slide, we had no idea how many applications were going to come in, how many verifications we were going to have to do, how many calls we were going to have to make, because there was no basis for answering that question. There you go. So we're going to have a slide real quick because I bet you didn't know. So roughly about 8.2 million people got qualified health plans, QHP. A lot of those people did paper applications sent to us in London, Kentucky. About 8.2 million of some of those people had what we call data matching errors. So you mistyped your social security number, you said you made a certain amount of money, government thinks you made something different. Exemptions, if you don't want to pay for Obamacare, if you don't want to have the covered insurance, you have to pay a fine. It's the individual mandate. If you don't want to pay that fee, you have to apply for an exemption. Those come through us. And we work directly with customers, with the consumers. We've had millions of interactions with consumers. And the kind of bet you didn't know part is all that was done in Appian. Okay? There we go. Okay, very quickly on this slide. So basically what's happening is we take in all the mail. And when I say take in all the mail, I mean it's a lot of mail. Typically, we will get between 10,000 and 100,000 documents a day. And all of that gets scanned in our OCR solution. Every single document that we get in ends up in Appian. So you can do the math. Okay, I'll give you some statistics on that. All of this stuff is digitized, goes into Appian, and then we have what we would consider heads-down task workers that process all of these documents essentially as cases. Okay, now we do it more as a task-based system more than a case because of the workers that we have. But ultimately, our goal is to get the consumer across the finish line so they can keep their coverage and get the appropriate tax credits that they deserve. Promise you I'm hitting this really hard. There we go, perfect. So what was our experience? In the past, I've used Appian on a couple different things, but given the fact that we have workers these are basically hourly workers, and so it's important to us not to spend time training all of these people how to use Appian. I want to train them how to do the business process that they're required to do, which is click this button, put this information here, do this, turn this knob, go forward. I don't want to spend time teaching them how to use forms, how to click on this thing, how to look at records. We don't have to do that. It's very intuitive for our workforce. This slide's a little old, and it's actually interesting because with the 7.9 release, a lot of the things in the core product, 7.7, 7.8, 7.9, are things that directly affect how we do our business. And we actually are running 7.8 in our environment. But a lot of these performance enhancements and tweaks, we worked very closely with Appian to analyze how we were performing with the volume. And again, I'm going to show you some of the volume numbers in a minute. The other thing that was important to us was our CEO challenged us to do it ourselves. So what's the most expensive way to deploy solutions? Typically that's using the vendor, not just Appian, that's every vendor. Okay? So we worked a ramp up and ramp down model with Appian, where initially we had Appian Professional Services doing probably 90% of the work, and now that's pretty much flip-flopped, where we're doing most of the work. It's important to us because we're delivering savings to our customer. Same level of effort, less expensive, and that's truly important to us. And the other thing that's interesting here related to cloud is our development and test environments are in Appian Cloud, and we port them to an on-premise environment, mostly for the PII concerns that our customer has. So here's some numbers. We run 3 sets of infrastructure. So we've done, I think if you add it up, we've done about 53 releases since October of 2013. At one point last year in August, in the old portal product, we had 695,000 running processes, like active processes. Typically, we have about 2,000 concurrent users, and these are not users that like open a task, work it for 45 minutes. This is open a task, work it for a minute, close it. Work it for a minute, close it. That's anywhere between 2,000 to 2,500 concurrent users, 18 hours a day. Okay? We have 4 major processing sites. It's a lot of folks. At times, we've created in a single day 125,000 new tasks. That's actual processes, actual tasks that we process. Again, we talk about the documents. And the second to last bullet, we actually had in the system 2.3 million documents, mostly PDFs and TIFFs. So these are not small, 23 kilobyte graphics. Most of those TIFFs, when we started scanning, we had documents 17 megs, 18 megs. It's probably this was probably in the terabyte range of documents that we were storing at any given time. And that was going in and out of the system at all time. Okay? We're migrating both of our systems and all of our systems to the Tempo environment. We've been very proactive in moving forward in that environment. And again, with the 7.9 release and the sites, it's exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to get to with Tempo, which is heads down work. We're measuring productivity in seconds, not minutes. And every second I can cut out of that, again, really the net value is it's saving our customer, saving CMS money, our customer. There's 2 other slides I want to talk about related to our operation that's kind of an interesting model. And so SERCO is as we mentioned, SERCO is a services company. We're not a systems integrator, not a technology company. We're designed to deliver services. And what's important to us is we built a model in this program to be as efficient at managing this workforce as possible. So Appian is the case management solution for this program. We don't use anything else. We're tracking for each of those tasks, start time, end time. Okay, and there's several steps in our processes, start time and end time, we track all that. We use a white labeled tool called Program Vision. It's something that we use in-house to measure end to end how we're doing. And our managers also have visibility. And we've also given visibility to our customer. Our customer can log into that. They see all of the data that comes out of Appian into Program Vision. Transparency. That's the way we word it with a customer. More recently, this calendar year, we started using a product called Simulate. It's a modeling simulation tool. And so what happens is data comes from Appian, gets collected into Program Vision, our analytics tool, spits out per task how long things take. We go and run simulations with our customer. So our customer, as we talked about this volatile political environment and the ever-changing nature of this program, they'll say, hey, we need you to call 400,000 customers. That's a number that they tell us to call. We put it in our simulation tool and find out if we can actually do that and what the impact will be. So so in practice, how does this work? Well, we log it every morning. We log all of the status codes in Appian so we know the statistical information that's happening in real time. Pretty much near real time. We're getting pretty close. It's merged with HR and accounting data, so we know individual users. We have all of our subcontractors in here. Goes into our simulation so we can check on customer requests. And each day, we have an operations stand-up meeting with our operations manager. So again, we have 4 big processing centers, a lot of employees, and we say, look, we told the customer we were going to get this, this many things done in the next, 2 weeks. We can find out exactly where we are every single day, and then our operations managers can direct the supervisors in the call centers to focus on specific tasks that need to get done or ahead or behind schedule. And that cycle repeats every single day. So that's what we're trying to use with the system and getting in this kind of real-time data is to be able to make that level of operational changes in 4 big processing centers on a daily basis to react to what we mentioned earlier, which is a very unknown level of volume that occurs on this program. I have no idea yet, what's going to happen with exemptions, what's going to happen with people who may apply for, it's open enrollment, change in circumstance over the summer, things like that. So don't know. There you go. A couple other slides real quick. How we're using the product, and I've really been interested to see a lot of the use cases that are out there now. Again, you're not going to be wowed by these screenshots after seeing the drone fly up and do stuff. And honestly, you'll see I have a disclaimer on all the slides. I wanted to make absolutely sure you guys did not think I was disclosing PII on stage at Appian World 15. So one of the things that's most important to us is the consumer experience. And in the portal product, you could build a dashboard for a consumer, but that wasn't the optimal way to do CRM and those things in Appian. With the 7 release and with the records release, we have the ability to take consumer data, aggregate it, so that when we do have these interactions and we make hundreds of thousands of phone calls a month, we have all of the data about all the interactions and all of the documents and all of the phone calls and all of their demographic data very quickly in front of our workforce. And I emphasize very quickly, I saw out in the exhibit area, some folks have done some work with call center. Call center can't be slow. So when I get somebody on the phone and I need to go and drill into information they have, I can't say, well, it's working, sorry. I have to be able to do that very quickly. And a lot of the stuff that's been done in the last couple of dot releases for the product have made it fast for us to be able to do that. Try with my right hand. There you go. Whoops. Again, more screenshots that are not going to wow anybody. When my mother sees this video, she's going to say, why do you keep clicking that button? There you go. Managing workload. Now, I mentioned in those slides previously, we have an operation cycle that happens every day. One of the things that happens is in between shifts, so between first and second shift, our managers actually use the Appian reports to pull tasks and figure out what our queues look like by application type. So they're coming in here as well. And again, this is all part of the complete cycle for us every day. Whoops. There we go. This is an interesting one, and I wanted to highlight this as something that we've started to do that's kind of interesting. So in our centers, there's no paper. Okay, so we've got a lot of PII. So we were doing, we had some of our QA people were doing over-the-shoulder QA. So workers sitting at the desk, somebody's actually looking over that. And again, for the very few, for the QA people we have, they're actually have to handwrite stuff on paper, which they take off the production floor and aggregate into QA information. So we started to brainstorm and say, well, why make them do over the shoulder and not be able to react to how the tasks were going through the system? So what we did was this. When a worker processes a specific task, we set as a variable in Appian that we want to QA, let's say 5% of everything that comes through the system. And what it does is it uses a random number generator, it pulls 5% of the tasks and assigns them to a work group for QA. And QA basically processes the exact same task, and if they get the same answer, they did it, the worker did it right. If they got a different answer, the worker did it wrong. And the reason I bring it up is the way we used to do it was somebody took a spreadsheet, they collaborated to a bunch of other spreadsheets, which went to a supervisor, which went to a site supervisor, which went to the PMO office in Reston, Virginia, and then, at some point the following week, we knew that we made an error. Now we actually prevent errors from ever leaving the system, because until it goes through that check, that task is not marked as complete, that data is not submitted. And that QA data goes straight into our analytics solution. And that way we know in real time what our QA looks like, and if we're making errors, we can adjust it on the fly during the day. Don't have to wait a week, don't have to wait a month. And finally, we've seen a couple of solutions here. I just wanted to point this out. So again, there's none of these products are all things to everybody, and I can tell you what we've done is we use a Kofax solution that does with these huge imaging systems. These are IBML scanners. They scan somewhere in the neighborhood of, I want to say 600 to 1,000 pages a minute. It's very fast. The thing to understand here is that process happens, and all of those documents, all of that indexed information goes straight in Appian. So again, the highlight here was that's between 10,000 and 100,000 documents every single day. Gets called into Appian, gets parsed into tasks. So again, I appreciate you guys letting me be the last guy for the day today. If anybody has questions after this or even at the dinner tonight, I'm happy to answer how we've done some of these things. The takeaway here is, again, this was designed as a mission to support our customer CMS in delivering a service to these consumers and trying to make their experience better. So again, I appreciate it. I'll end up here. Thank you very much.